All right, everybody, welcome back to Founder and CEO. So we've got more information on who the shooter is and what was his motive behind killing Charlie. And we're going to watch this Fox News segment to basically see why he did what he did and what was his reason behind it and what we found out. And there's also some more articles that I'm going to go through. So let's get to it.
So as investigators dig into the suspected killer's past, they will try to answer how a young man could be radicalized enough to plan and then commit such a profoundly devastating act. Let's bring in retired FBI Special Agent Robin Dreeke. He is also the former chief of the FBI's Counterintelligence Behavior Analysis Program. This is just so difficult to understand, how you could come to hate somebody so much who apparently you've never met, that you're willing to take out a rifle and end their life. Can you shed any light on that for us, Robin?
Yeah, sure. Unfortunately, he fits a pattern, being the killer, a pattern of what we've seen emerging in the last bunch of shootings, the last bunch of years, and that is an arc of violence and insecurities that is being fueled by this new form of online radicalization. You know, years ago when I thought of online radicalization, I thought of ISIS, but now it's these fringe groups that are feeling themselves victimized, that see themselves as victims and wound collectors, as we call them. And what's happening is Charlie Kirk represented everything he wasn't.
Put it. Charlie Kirk represented everything the shooter wasn't. So I've done a little bit of research behind what was his motives. And even though I don't know if they'll go into full detail about what his motives were in this Fox News segment, Tyler Robinson, from all intents and purposes, as looking at him, it basically seems like he was in a very confused state in his life. And it seems like I said before in my previous video, in this country now we have a really bad problem of, especially amongst young men, they're having a hard time identifying who they want to be and what they want to be, primarily because they're being bombarded from pretty much all sides. They're being bombarded from the media. They're being bombarded from the institutions that they go to school at. And so they're hearing so many conflicting messages on what it means to be a man, what it means to be a man in society. And unfortunately for Tyler, I feel like a lot of his viewpoints and a lot of his mentality came from a side that has progressively, over the number of years, they have become more and more vocal about things they don't agree with, especially amongst conservatives. And so I think maybe Tyler fell into the propaganda of what's going on today. And I won't go into detail because I don't want this channel to be this side versus this side. Look, we're all people trying to figure out the right direction to go. And we're all people, I feel like we truly believe we want the country to be in a better state, in a better place. But what Tyler did goes beyond that. What Tyler did is taking action into his own hands, and he's playing God. And so I think that's what we've seen more from the left. The left is willing to spread rhetoric. They're willing to spread hate. They're willing to spread more of a narrative to say, if you don't agree with our viewpoint, then this is something that requires violence to fix. And that's never a good thing, especially if someone just has an alternative viewpoint than you, because we live in a world that is, we live in a country that is free. And that's a blessing, because our country is a blessing to the entire world from how I see it, because we have the ability to have discourse. We have the ability to say the things we don't like, say the things we feel that we don't like. And we have the ability to go to sleep at night and still live a normal life. And it's unfortunate that Tyler fell down to this rhetoric that he felt like his problems had to be solved with violence. And that's a very sad thing. And it's also unfortunate, very sad that Charlie had to be in the line of fire, like I said before. And so I think we have to look at the media, and we have to look at the politicians that are on the left that are promoting these ideas. And these ideas, when I say anything that's coming from the Democratic Party in the last couple of years, just being critical of them, they have been more on a divisive front rather than a cohesive, let's come together and fix our problems. So the Democratic Party is really sowing dissent because it seems like that's what they want. It seems like they want chaos, and they're getting exactly what they've been pushing for, because the last couple shootings have been taken place by a particular group of people. I won't name that group of people, but if you do your research, you'll understand who they are. And so Tyler fell into the same mindset that Charlie Kirk, he just didn't agree with. He just didn't agree with the mindset. He didn't agree with the notion of, you know what, X, Y, and Z. A man can be X, Y, and Z. A woman can be X, Y, and Z. So Charlie had an alternative opinion to that, and that's fine, because we live in a free country. We live in a country that is primarily built for discourse. That's what this whole country was founded on. It was founded on disagreements. So it's always sad and unfortunate to see someone lose their life because of a disagreement. And like Robin just said, this young man didn't even know Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk had no idea who this young man was. But this young man, just because his feelings and what he was being taught, what he was being fed, it promoted him to want to take action into his own hand. And that's never a good thing. Never. And so, yeah, it's pretty sad what has occurred, because recently this isn't the first. This isn't the first. And to be completely honest with you, I don't want to knock on wood. I hope this is the last, but time will tell.
This is as we saw by, what Paul Moore was describing, this lack of a really clear plan executed really poorly shows his really low thinking here. Didn't have a great plan, and he really wasn't locked on to who he actually was, whether it's etchings that are all over the place, his plan was all over the place, his ideology was all over the place. Meanwhile, what Charlie Kirk was very clear on who he was, very clear on his belief systems, and most importantly, he could articulate it, he could argue it, and he embodied what everyone is missing on this thing right now. He was curious. He was curious about people that thought like him. He was curious, most importantly, about people that didn't think like him. And this individual that killed him was never curious, not once. And so that is really the fuel that fired him up to do this heinous thing.
Yeah. Robin makes a good point here, because curiosity is what builds life. It's how we all got here, because we, by nature as humans, we are curious individuals. And I feel like what's going on inside our education system, what's going on inside the media, what's going on even inside corporations, and how they're formatting how you should come to work and how you should be cohesive and you should have one mindset, is that there's a certain group of individuals that are trying to weed out the curiosity of mankind. And that's a factual thing now that we're starting to see as we're starting to matriculate more and more in the years, is that they don't want you asking one primary question that you always asked when you were a child. Why? We've all been children, and if you have children, you know that they continuously ask that one question, why? And so for the left, they want mindless drones. That's what it seems to be. They want you to believe the narrative. They want you to believe the rhetoric. They want you to believe the propaganda. And they don't want you to ask the question why. Because if you start asking questions why, now you're thinking critically. And when you start thinking critically, you start to understand that there's hardly ever a solid answer if you answer critically. And yes, there are answers that can lead you to what you agree with morally and what you agree with as your standard. But as far as a definitive answer of saying this is right, this is wrong, this is how it is, this is how it's always been, no. because that's not life. Life is constantly flowing. Life is constantly changing into something new every single day. And so when you start to understand how to ask that question, why, you start to become more concrete in who you are as a person, what aligns with you. And I think Robin made a good point. Like you said, a lot of the things that they're seeing, a lot of things the FBI are seeing, Charlie didn't know, or excuse me, Tyler didn't know who he was. Tyler had no idea who he wanted to be. And that's a very hard thing because, as I said before, a lot of the men, and especially a lot of the young men, including myself, we've been raised in an environment of propaganda. We've been raised in an environment that tells us this is the right way. This is the way you need to do things. If you don't do these things properly, if you don't do these things this way, then you are wrong. And so not only have we been raised in this environment of propaganda and mental abuse, we've been retaliated against for having our own opinions, having our own mindset that goes counter to that opinion. Because we've all seen cancel culture in the past recent years to where if you have an alternative opinion, basically, let's be honest, if you have an alternative opinion to the left, then you will be demonified. You'll be demonified online. You'll be yelled at. You'll be screamed at. And you will not have any recourse. You will not get any sleep. You will not get any leeway because that's how they operate. And it's unfortunate that the Democratic Party, even corporations, have weaponized people against their own group of people because this is one country. We live in this country together. So if things start to fall apart, they're going to fall apart for everybody, not just that side, not just this side. Everybody's going to feel it. And so you have to start asking more critical questions. Why? As to why does one specific side want chaos? And so, like I said, it's very unfortunate that Tyler couldn't find his footing. And so I'm not going to come on this platform just like everybody else and say he's a bad guy. And I'm not promoting for the death of Charlie Kirk. It's an unfortunate event all the way around that both of these individuals' lives have been impacted immensely. And it's very sad.
Yeah, we read, and again, the details will come out if there ever is a trial here. But we read that he sat down with one of his relatives and they both started saying, hey, I hate this guy, Charlie Kirk, and he's coming to campus and I don't like what he says. But how do you go from, disliking what somebody says to going through the motions that we all saw happen here? It astounds me.
It astounds people like us because we have rational problem-solving skills that this individual didn't.
Exactly. So the education system used to promote rational problem-solving skills. But now we live in a day to where the education system is only promoting indoctrination. You follow what we say, or there is an overt punishment waiting for you. And this is not every single institution. Of course, it's not every single institution, but the ones that are the culprits of it, it's really bad. And so this indoctrination starts early. It starts at a very early age in some of these institutions, in some of these schools. So that's why it's very critical as a parent to basically understand, where is my child getting their information from? And let's also point to the fact that our time and what we live in has changed so rapidly, so fast. Information is so accessible to everyone, from a child to an adult to an elderly person, that you don't really know what you're looking at. Because even today, a child can go on TikTok and they can just listen to a narrative of a person that speaks well.